It started with a knock. Not loud. Not soft. Backhand index pointing right, perfectly timed. 3 a.m. Every night. Exactly the same. The beginning. Aman had just moved into a new apartment. Cheap rent. Good location. Backhand index pointing right, too good to be true. But he didn't care. He needed a place. And this one was perfect. At least. It seemed like it. The first night. Everything was normal. He unpacked his things. Watched some videos. Then went to sleep. Peaceful. Quiet. The first knock. At exactly 3 a.m. Backhand index pointing right, knock. 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 Aman's eyes opened. He looked at the clock. Backhand index pointing right, 3 a.m. The confusion. He sat up slowly. Backhand index pointing right, who would knock at this time? No one knew him here. No friends. No neighbors. The door. The knock came again. Backhand index pointing right, knock. 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 Same rhythm. Same timing. The fear begins. Aman walked toward the door. Slowly. Carefully. His heartbeat rising, the question. Backhand index pointing right, who is it? Silence. No answer. The decision. He hesitated. Should he open it? Or ignore it? The curiosity wins. Slowly. He unlocked the door. And opened it. Nothing. No one was there. Empty hallway. Dim light. Complete silence. Backhand index pointing right, what? The strange detail. But then. He noticed something. On the floor. Backhand index pointing right, a door. Not a real one. A drawing. Perfectly drawn. On the ground. The impossible. Aman stepped back. Backhand index pointing right, who drew this? It wasn't there before. He was sure. The warning. Written on it. In dark letters. Backhand index pointing right, do not open. The fear deepens. Aman felt a chill. Backhand index pointing right, this is a prank. He tried to laugh. But it didn't feel funny. The second night. The next night. Again. Backhand index pointing right, 3 a.m. Backhand index pointing right, knock. 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 Same sound. Same timing. The pattern. Now it wasn't random. Backhand index pointing right, it was a pattern. The change. This time. When Aman opened the door. The hallway was still empty. But the drawing. Backhand index pointing right was gone. The shock. Aman looked down. Nothing. Clean floor. As if it was never there. The third night. By the third night. He was waiting. Sitting. Watching the clock. 2:59 a.m. 3 a.m. Backhand index pointing right, knock. 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 The difference. But this time. Something was different. The door appears. Slowly. On the wall in front of him. Backhand index pointing right, a real door appeared. Not drawn. Not imagined. Backhand index pointing right, real. The horror detail. Old wood. Scratched surface. And on it. Backhand index pointing right, the same words. Do not open. The silence. Aman couldn't move. Couldn't breathe. Because this time. Backhand index pointing right, it wasn't outside. Backhand index pointing right, it was inside his room. The whisper. Then. From the other side of the door. Backhand index pointing right, a voice. Soft. Cold. Backhand index pointing right, Aman. The final moment. His blood ran cold. Because. Backhand index pointing right, he never told anyone his name. Aman stood frozen. The door. Inside his room. Backhand index pointing right was real. And the voice. Backhand index pointing right knew his name. The silence. The room felt smaller. The air heavier. Time slower. Aman stared at the door. Not blinking. Not moving. The writing. On the door. Those same words. Backhand index pointing right, do not open. But now. They looked different. Darker. Backhand index pointing right, wet. As if they were freshly written. The whisper again. Then. Backhand index pointing right, Aman. Closer this time. From inside the door. The fear grows. His hand started shaking. Backhand index pointing right, who is there? No answer. Just silence. The sound. Suddenly. Backhand index pointing right, scratch. 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 From the other side. Like nails. Dragging slowly across wood. The imagination versus reality. Aman stepped back. Backhand index pointing right, this isn't real. But deep inside. Backhand index pointing right, he knew it was. The temptation. Then. Something changed. The voice became softer. Calmer. Almost. Backhand index pointing right, familiar. Backhand index pointing right, Aman, open the door. The shock. His heart skipped a beat. Because the voice. Backhand index pointing right sounded like his mother. The memory. His mother had passed away years ago. There was no way. Backhand index pointing right, no way. The emotional trap. Backhand index pointing right, I've been waiting for you. The voice continued. Gentle. Backhand index pointing right, please, open the door. The conflict. Tears filled Aman's eyes. Backhand index pointing right, Mom. His voice broke. The warning returns. But then. He looked at the door again. Backhand index pointing right, do not open. Those words. Felt louder now. Stronger. The realization. Backhand index pointing right, this is not her. Backhand index pointing right, this is something else. The change in tone. Suddenly. The voice changed. No longer soft. No longer kind. Backhand index pointing right, open it. Louder. Angrier. The darkness inside. The door began to shake. Slightly. Then harder. The fear peaks. Aman stumbled back. Backhand index pointing right, stay away. The first crack. A thin line appeared on the door. A crack. From inside. Backhand index pointing right, something was pushing. The sound of breaking. Backhand index pointing right, crack. 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 The wood started splitting. The glimpse. Through the crack. Aman saw something. Dark. Moving. Not human. The eye. Then. Backhand index pointing right, an eye appeared. Looking straight at him. Wide. Unnatural. The voice returns. But this time. Multiple voices. Whispering together. Backhand index pointing right, let us in. The panic. Aman grabbed a chair. Held it in front of him. Backhand index pointing right, go away. The moment of control. Then suddenly. Everything stopped. The shaking. The voices. The crack. Silence. The disappearance. In 1 second. Backhand index pointing right, the door vanished. Gone. Like it was never there. The aftermath. Aman fell to the ground. Breathing heavily. Sweating. Shaking. Backhand index pointing right, what was that? The final detail. Then. He looked at the wall. Where the door had been. And his blood froze. Because scratched into the wall were new words. The crime scene told a story Michael Beebe never intended to share. While he believed he had acted carefully, investigators saw something else entirely, a trail of silent mistakes. The first breaks in the case. When police arrived, they immediately sensed inconsistencies. The scene looked staged, almost too clean in some areas and strangely chaotic in others. Experienced detectives know this pattern well. It suggested planning, followed by panic. Neighbors were interviewed first. One statement stood out. A witness recalled seeing Michael near the location at a time he later claimed he was somewhere else. It was a small detail, but in criminal investigations, small details often break cases wide open. Digital footprints. Investigators turned to Michael's digital life. What they found was disturbing. Search histories revealed repeated queries related to violence, crime scenes, and how investigations work. Though none of it directly proved guilt, it painted a psychological picture, someone thinking deeply about committing a serious act and avoiding consequences. Phone records placed Michael near the scene during critical hours. The puzzle pieces were slowly aligning. Interrogation room pressure. When detectives brought Michael in for questioning, he appeared calm, almost emotionless. He answered politely, carefully choosing his words. But trained interrogators noticed something off. His timeline kept shifting. Minor changes. Subtle contradictions. Nothing obvious, but enough to raise suspicion. When confronted with evidence, Michael didn't react with anger or fear. He went silent. Silence, in interrogation psychology, can be louder than words. Cracks in the mask. As questioning continued, Michael's composed exterior began to fracture. His breathing changed. His hands trembled slightly. He avoided eye contact when certain questions were asked. Investigators recognized the signs. The calm mask was slipping. Backhand index pointing right, do not open. The truth. This time. Aman didn't move closer. Because now he knew. Backhand index pointing right, it wasn't a door. Backhand index pointing right, it was something else. The voice changes again. From the other side. A new voice. Not his mother. Not familiar. Backhand index pointing right, deep. Cold. Almost ancient. Backhand index pointing right, you saw us. The fear peaks. Aman's body froze. Backhand index pointing right, us. The reveal begins. The door started opening. By itself. Slowly. Backhand index pointing right, creak. The darkness inside. Inside. Backhand index pointing right, nothing. Just darkness. Deep. Endless. The movement. Then. Something moved inside. More than one thing. The truth. Aman realized. Backhand index pointing right, it wasn't one creature. Backhand index pointing right, there were many. The hands. From the darkness. Backhand index pointing right, hands appeared. Long. Thin. Twisted. Reaching out. The voices together. All at once. Backhand index pointing right, come. The pull. A force pulled Aman forward. Slowly. Unstoppable. Backhand index pointing right, no. No. The resistance. He grabbed the table. Held tight. Trying not to move. The power. But the force grew stronger. Dragging him closer. Closer to the door. The face appears. Then. From inside the darkness. Backhand index pointing right, a face emerged. Not fully human. Not fully visible. But enough to see. Backhand index pointing right, it was smiling. The whisper. Backhand index pointing right, you opened it once. Backhand index pointing right, now, you finish it. The truth hits hard. Aman's eyes widened. Backhand index pointing right, I never opened it. The final reveal. The voice replied. Backhand index pointing right, not in this life. Silence. Everything stopped. For a second. The past connection. Aman's mind flashed. Images. A door. Him. Backhand index pointing right, opening it. The real horror. Backhand index pointing right, this wasn't the first time. Backhand index pointing right, he had done this before. The pull increases. The hands grabbed him. Cold. Tight. Pulling him inside. The last moment. Aman screamed. Backhand index pointing right, help. But no one heard. Because this time. Backhand index pointing right, the door wasn't outside the world. Backhand index pointing right, it was inside him. Aman was being pulled. Into the darkness. Into something. He didn't understand. Backhand index pointing right, or maybe, something he had forgotten. The grip of the unknown. The hands were cold. Too cold. Not like human skin. Backhand index pointing right, like something that never lived. They tightened around his arms. Dragging him closer to the door. The darkness inside. The closer he got. The darker everything became. The room disappeared. The world faded. Backhand index pointing right, only the door remained. The last resistance. Aman screamed. Backhand index pointing right, let me go. He tried to pull back. But it was useless. Backhand index pointing right, the force was too strong. The crossing. And then. Backhand index pointing right, he crossed the door. Silence. Complete silence. The other side. When Aman opened his eyes. He was no longer in his room. No apartment. No city. Backhand index pointing right, no present. The new world. He stood in a place. That looked old. Very old. Like something from another time. The sky. The sky was dark. But not night. Backhand index pointing right, something in between. A dim, gray light. Covering everything. The ground. The ground was cracked. Dry. Almost dead. The structures. Around him. Were buildings. Broken. Ancient. Not modern at all. Backhand index pointing right, where am I? The answer comes. From behind him. Backhand index pointing right, home. Aman turned quickly. And saw a figure. Standing still. The figure. It looked human. But something was wrong. Its face. Backhand index pointing right, was his face. The shock. Aman stepped back. Backhand index pointing right, that's me. The truth begins. The other Aman smiled. Slowly. Creepily. Backhand index pointing right, not you. Backhand index pointing right, the first you. The confusion. Backhand index pointing right, what does that mean? The revelation. The figure walked closer. Backhand index pointing right, you have lived before. Backhand index pointing right, many times. The memory unlocks. Suddenly. Images flooded Aman's mind. Different lives. Different faces. Different times. Backhand index pointing right but the same ending. The pattern. In every life. Backhand index pointing right there was a door. And in every life. Backhand index pointing right he opened it. The curse. The figure spoke again. Backhand index pointing right, you are bound to it. Backhand index pointing right, the door chooses you. The cycle. Backhand index pointing right, every life, you return. Backhand index pointing right, every life, you forget. Backhand index pointing right, every life, you open it again. The horror truth. Aman realized something terrifying. Backhand index pointing right, this wasn't a mistake. Backhand index pointing right, it was a cycle. The question. Backhand index pointing right, why me? The answer. The figure leaned closer. Backhand index pointing right, because you were the first. Silence. Aman's heart stopped. Backhand index pointing right, first. The origin. Backhand index pointing right, you opened the door, before anyone else. Backhand index pointing right, you invited us. The real horror. Aman's mind went blank. Backhand index pointing right, no. I didn't. The final truth of the part. The figure whispered. Backhand index pointing right, you don't remember. Backhand index pointing right, but you will. The darkness returns. The world around him started fading. Cracking. Breaking. As if it wasn't real. The pull back. A force pulled him again. Back. Out of that world. The last line. Before everything disappeared. The figure smiled and said. Backhand index pointing right, next time, you won't resist. Aman gasped for air. He was back. Back in his room. But something had changed. Backhand index pointing right, he remembered. Not everything. But enough to feel the truth. The memory returns. Fragments. Broken scenes. A different time. A different life. Backhand index pointing right but the same fear. The beginning of everything. Aman closed his eyes. And the memory took over. The past. He was no longer Aman. He was someone else. In another life. Long ago. The old world. There were no modern buildings. No electricity. No city lights. Just darkness. And silence. The place. A small settlement. Hidden. Forgotten. Surrounded by forest. Backhand index pointing right, a place people feared. The man he was. In that life. He was curious. Just like now. Searching for answers. Backhand index pointing right, searching for something unknown. The discovery. One night. He found it. Backhand index pointing right, a door. Not attached to any wall. Standing alone. In the middle of nowhere. The same words. On it. Backhand index pointing right, do not open. The same warning. The same message. The choice. He stood there. Looking at it. Feeling something strange. Backhand index pointing right, a pull. Like it was calling him. The first mistake. He could have walked away. He should have walked away. But instead. Backhand index pointing right, he touched the handle. The moment everything changed. The door opened. Slowly. Silently. And from inside. Backhand index pointing right, darkness. Endless. Deep. The first voice. A voice came from within. Soft. Cold. Backhand index pointing right, you found us. The invitation. The man, Aman in that life, whispered. Backhand index pointing right, what is this? The answer. The voice replied. Backhand index pointing right, freedom. The lie. He didn't know. Backhand index pointing right, it was a trap. The first entry. He stepped inside. Just one step. And that was enough. The binding. The moment he entered. Backhand index pointing right, the door closed. And something changed forever. The deal. The voices spoke together. Backhand index pointing right, you opened the way. Backhand index pointing right, now you belong to us. The curse begins. From that moment. Backhand index pointing right, the cycle started. New life. New identity. But always the same ending. Backhand index pointing right, the door returns. Back to present. Aman opened his eyes. Breathing heavily. Backhand index pointing right, I did this. The guilt. His hands trembled. Backhand index pointing right, I started this. The realization. This wasn't random. This wasn't bad luck. Backhand index pointing right, this was his mistake. The door appears again. Suddenly. Backhand index pointing right, knock. 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 3 a.m. The door formed again. In front of him. The difference now. But this time. Backhand index pointing right, Aman didn't look scared. He looked aware. The voice returns. Backhand index pointing right, you remember now. The final line of the part. Aman stepped closer to the door. And whispered. Backhand index pointing right, then this time. I end it. Aman stood still. The door was in front of him. Real. Waiting. Backhand index pointing right, but this time, he wasn't afraid. The change. Before. He was confused. Before. He was running. But now. Backhand index pointing right, he remembered everything. The truth inside him. Backhand index pointing right, I opened it. Backhand index pointing right, I started this. His voice was low. Heavy with guilt. The voice behind the door. From inside. Backhand index pointing right, then open it again. Soft. Tempting. Dangerous. The calm before the storm. The room felt silent. Too silent. Like everything was waiting. Watching. The decision. Aman stepped closer. Slowly. His hand moved toward the handle. But this time. Backhand index pointing right, not out of curiosity. Backhand index pointing right, out of control. The plan. Backhand index pointing right, if I opened it. Backhand index pointing right, then I can close it forever. The door reacts. The moment his hand touched it. Backhand index pointing right, the door vibrated. Like it was alive. The voices rise. Suddenly. Multiple voices scream together. Backhand index pointing right, no. Backhand index pointing right, don't do this. The truth revealed. They were afraid. Backhand index pointing right, not of him. Backhand index pointing right, of what he might do. The opening. Aman pulled the door open. Slowly. This time. Backhand index pointing right, willingly. The darkness returns. Inside. The same darkness. But stronger. Deeper. More alive. The creatures appear. From inside. Hands. Faces. Shadows. All reaching out. The voice changes. Now angry. Backhand index pointing right, you belong to us. The resistance. Aman stepped inside. Not pulled. Backhand index pointing right by choice. The other side again. The world shifted. Dark sky. Broken ground. Endless emptiness. Facing the truth. This time. He didn't look away. The first figure appears. That same version of him. The first one. Standing there. Waiting. The final conversation. Backhand index pointing right, you came back. Aman nodded. Backhand index pointing right, to end this. The reality of the curse. The figure smiled. Backhand index pointing right, you can't end it. Backhand index pointing right, you are it. The silence. Aman closed his eyes. For a second. Thinking. The realization. Backhand index pointing right, if I am the beginning. Backhand index pointing right, then I can be the end. The final move. He walked forward. Toward the darkness. Toward the source. The core. At the center. A shape. Moving. Breathing. Backhand index pointing right, the origin of everything. The fear returns. The voices screamed. Backhand index pointing right, stop. Backhand index pointing right, you will destroy everything. The choice. Aman didn't stop. Didn't hesitate. The last line before action. Backhand index pointing right, then let it end. The impact. He stepped into the darkness. Fully. And everything exploded. Light. Sound. Silence. Back to the room. Aman woke up. In his room. Morning light. No door. No scratches. Nothing. The calm. He looked around. Everything normal. Peaceful. The question. Backhand index pointing right, is it over? The final detail. Then. From behind him. Backhand index pointing right, knock. 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 He froze. Slowly turned. And there. Backhand index pointing right, a small crack on the wall. Starting to form. Morning light filled the room. Everything looked normal. Peaceful. Safe. But Aman. Backhand index pointing right didn't feel safe. The illusion of normal. He stood still. Looking at the wall. The same wall. Where the door had appeared. Now clean. Empty. Backhand index pointing right, maybe it's over. He whispered. But deep inside. Backhand index pointing right, something felt wrong. The memory stays. Unlike before. This time he remembered everything. The door. The darkness. The past lives. Backhand index pointing right, the truth. The day feels heavy. Hours passed. But nothing changed. No strange sounds. No whispers. No door. The false relief. Aman sat down. Finally breathing normally. Backhand index pointing right, it's gone. But just as he said that. Backhand index pointing right, tick. 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 The clock. The time stops. He looked up. The clock was moving. Slowly. Then. Backhand index pointing right, it stopped. Exactly at 3 a.m. The impossible moment. Aman's heart skipped. Backhand index pointing right, no. It was daytime. There was no way. The temperature drops. Suddenly. The room became cold. Very cold. The crack returns. A faint sound. Backhand index pointing right crack. Aman turned slowly. The wall. Right in front of him. Backhand index pointing right was splitting open. The door rebuilds. Not forming like before. This time. Backhand index pointing right forcing its way out. Breaking the wall. Pushing through reality. The fear returned stronger. Aman stepped back. Backhand index pointing right, I ended this. Backhand index pointing right, I destroyed it. The voice laughs. From inside. Backhand index pointing right laughter. Low. Echoing. Backhand index pointing right, you tried. The truth. The door fully formed. Bigger. Darker. Stronger than before. The revelation. Backhand index pointing right, you cannot destroy what you created. Backhand index pointing right, you only made it stronger. The real horror. Aman realized something terrifying. Backhand index pointing right, the door feeds on him. His fear. His memory. His existence. The world starts breaking. The room started changing. Walls bending. Lights flickering. Objects shifting. Backhand index pointing right, reality was collapsing. The outside changes too. Aman ran to the window. Looked outside. And froze. Backhand index pointing right, the world outside was wrong. Empty streets. No people. No sound. Backhand index pointing right, like everything was gone. The trap expands. This wasn't just his room anymore. Backhand index pointing right, the door was taking over everything. The voice becomes clear. Backhand index pointing right, there is no outside. Backhand index pointing right, only inside. The collapse of reality. The floor cracked. The sky outside turned dark. Everything. Backhand index pointing right merging into the same darkness. The return of the first one. Suddenly. That same figure appeared again. The first version of Aman. Standing inside the room. The final truth revealed. Backhand index pointing right, you didn't break the curse. Backhand index pointing right, you are the curse. The silence. Aman couldn't speak. Couldn't move. Because deep inside. Backhand index pointing right, he knew it was true. The infinite cycle. Backhand index pointing right, every time you try to end it. Backhand index pointing right, you reset it. Backhand index pointing right, stronger. The horror of existence. Aman whispered. Backhand index pointing right, so, there's no end. The answer. The figure smiled. Backhand index pointing right, there is one. The hope. Aman looked up. Backhand index pointing right, tell me. The dark answer. Backhand index pointing right, stop existing. Silence. Everything froze. The meaning. Backhand index pointing right, if you disappear. Backhand index pointing right, the door disappears. The ultimate choice. Aman stood there. Broken. Tired. Thinking. The weight of the decision. Backhand index pointing right live, and let the world end. Backhand index pointing right or disappear, and end everything. The final moment of the part. The door opened wide. Darkness spreading everywhere. Swallowing everything. The last line. Aman closed his eyes. And whispered. Backhand index pointing right, if that's the only way. Darkness was spreading. Slowly. Silently. But unstoppable. The end of reality. The room was gone. The walls. Backhand index pointing right dissolving into shadows. The floor beneath Aman's feet. Backhand index pointing right cracking apart. Everything. Backhand index pointing right turning into nothing. The door stands alone. Only one thing remained. Backhand index pointing right the door. Standing in the middle of endless darkness. Alive. Watching. Waiting. The truth inside him. Aman stood still. No fear. No panic. Backhand index pointing right, just understanding. The final realization. Backhand index pointing right, this doesn't end with closing the door. Backhand index pointing right, it ends with me. The voice speaks again. From everywhere at once. Backhand index pointing right, you finally understand. Calm. Almost satisfied. The last conversation. Aman looked toward the darkness. Backhand index pointing right, if I disappear, everything ends. The answer. Backhand index pointing right, everything, connected to you. The hidden meaning. Aman understood. Backhand index pointing right, not just the door. Backhand index pointing right, the world tied to it. Backhand index pointing right, the reality it was consuming. All of it. Backhand index pointing right linked to him. The weight of the choice. His heart felt heavy. But his mind was clear. The memory of life. Flashes appeared. His childhood. His family. Moments of happiness. Backhand index pointing right, a life, worth living. The pain of letting go. His eyes filled with tears. Backhand index pointing right, so this is how it ends. The silence before the end. Everything slowed down. Even the darkness paused. As if waiting. The final step. Aman walked forward. Toward the door. Toward the center of everything. The resistance. The voices suddenly changed. Panicked. Backhand index pointing right, stop. Backhand index pointing right, you don't have to do this. The truth. For the first time. Backhand index pointing right, they were afraid. The realization. Backhand index pointing right, they don't want me to end this. The strength. Aman smiled slightly. Weak. But strong. Backhand index pointing right, that means I'm right. The final words. He stood in front of the door. Placed his hand on it. And whispered. Backhand index pointing right, this ends with me. The collapse begins. The moment he said it. The door cracked. Light burst from inside. Blinding. Powerful. The destruction. The darkness screamed. The voices shattered. Everything. Backhand index pointing right, breaking apart. The sacrifice. Aman stepped forward. Into the light. And disappeared. The silence. No sound. No movement. Nothing. Backhand index pointing right, just emptiness. The aftermath. Slowly. Reality started rebuilding. Walls returning. Light coming back. The world. Backhand index pointing right, healing. The room again. The room appeared. Clean. Normal. No cracks. No door. No darkness. The question. But something was missing. Something important. Backhand index pointing right, someone. The final twist set up. On the wall. Very faintly. Almost invisible. Backhand index pointing right, a mark. Like something. Backhand index pointing right, trying to come back. Silence. Deep. Unnatural. The world after. The room was calm. Clean. Normal. No cracks. No shadows. Backhand index pointing right, no door. The missing piece. But something felt wrong. Like something important. Backhand index pointing right had been erased. The new morning. Sunlight filled the room. A new day. A new beginning. The new person. A man opened his eyes. Lying on the same bed. Same room. But different. His name. Backhand index pointing right, Rayhan. He looked around. Confused. Backhand index pointing right, where am I? The strange feeling. Everything felt familiar. But also strange. Like a dream he couldn't remember. The day goes on. Rayhan got up. Walked around the apartment. Everything normal. Nothing unusual. The hidden mark. But on the wall. There was something. Very faint. Almost invisible. Backhand index pointing right, a mark. Like something had once been there. The unseen connection. Rayhan touched it. A sudden chill ran through him. Backhand index pointing right, what is this? The time moves. Hours passed. Nothing happened. Everything peaceful. The pattern returns. Night came. Rayhan sat in the room. Scrolling his phone. Relaxed. Unaware. The clock. 2:59 a.m. He didn't notice. The moment. 3 a.m. Backhand index pointing right, knock. 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 Rayhan froze. Slowly looked up. Backhand index pointing right, who's there? The same rhythm. The knock came again. Exactly the same. Exactly the same timing. The door appears again. On the wall. Backhand index pointing right, a crack formed. Slowly. Then. Backhand index pointing right, the door appeared. Just like before. The words return. On it. The voice. From inside. Backhand index pointing right, Rayhan. Soft. Cold. The mirror of the past. Rayhan's heart started racing. Backhand index pointing right, how do you know my name? The final truth revealed. From inside the door. A whisper came. Backhand index pointing right, you forgot again. The ultimate twist. The camera slowly zooms out. And on the wall. Behind the door. Very faintly. Backhand index pointing right, another name scratched. Aman. The cycle continues. The truth was clear now. Backhand index pointing right, the door never ended. Backhand index pointing right, it only changed its target. The last line. And the voice whispered one last time. Backhand index pointing right, it begins again. The knock echoed again. Backhand index pointing right, knock. 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 3 a.m. Exactly. The beginning. Again. Rayhan stood frozen. Heart racing. Eyes locked on the door. Backhand index pointing right, the same door. Same cracks. Same darkness leaking from the edges. The words. On it. Backhand index pointing right, do not open. The warning. The lie. The fear returns. Rayhan stepped back. Backhand index pointing right, this isn't real. But his voice was shaking. The whisper. From inside. Backhand index pointing right, Rayhan. Soft. Almost kind. The pull. Something deep inside him moved. Backhand index pointing right, a strange familiarity. Like he had done this before. The forgotten memory. Flashes in his mind. A door. Darkness. A man walking into light. Backhand index pointing right, Aman. The connection. Rayhan held his head. Backhand index pointing right, why do I remember him? The truth begins to break through. The voice whispered again. Backhand index pointing right, you were always part of this. The real horror. The wall behind the door started changing. More scratches appeared. Names. Dozens of names. Hundreds. The revelation. Every name. Backhand index pointing right was a person who faced the door. The pattern exposed. Backhand index pointing right 1 opens the door. Backhand index pointing right 1 tries to end it. Backhand index pointing right 1 disappears. Backhand index pointing right 1 replaces. Backhand index pointing right forever. The truth about Aman. Rayhan's eyes widened. Backhand index pointing right, he didn't end it. Backhand index pointing right, he became part of it. The final form. The door began to open. Slowly. But this time. Backhand index pointing right, something stepped out. The figure appears. A shadow. Human shape. Walking forward. The face revealed. Rayhan froze. Because the face. Backhand index pointing right was Aman. But not the same. Eyes empty. Expression cold. The ultimate twist. Aman spoke. Backhand index pointing right, I tried to end it. Backhand index pointing right, now. I keep it alive. The cycle keeper. Backhand index pointing right, every door needs someone on the other side. The truth. Rayhan whispered. Backhand index pointing right, so, you're part of it now. The answer. Aman smiled slowly. Backhand index pointing right, and now, it's your turn. The pull begins. The darkness behind Aman moved. Reaching out. Calling Rayhan. The final choice. Run. Or open it. The moment. Rayhan looked at the door. At the darkness. At Aman. The end, or beginning. Slowly. He stepped forward. Hand reaching toward the door. The final line. Backhand index pointing right, knock. 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 Screen fades to black. And a whisper echoes. Backhand index pointing right, it never ends.